One day your kids are going to walk out of the house, and will they be ready? The truth is that preparation starts today, right now. Hi, I'm Nancy Maria Peterson. I have 6 kids. I've been homeschooling for 20 years. I have 5 that are graduating, and I have 1 left at home. And I want to talk about raising ready kids. What does that look like? And what does that even mean? So I think, I don't know, it was many, many years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago, I sat with 2 really well-intended friends, and they were telling me how my kids weren't going to be ready to be launched. Then I was too protective. I was too this, I was too that. And they were telling me that my kids weren't going to thrive when they got into the real world. The truth is, my kids thrived just fine. They did great. They got off to college and they did careers and they did all these things, and they did it without a lot of bumpy roads. Now, there's always going to be bumps in roads, so we're not going to avoid that completely. But I do want to talk about the importance of raising ready kids. And the truth is that it does start right now. It doesn't matter what their age is. You're preparing these children of yours to be healthy, successful adults. And usually that doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't just happen because, we did some cool stuff here and there. It is so important if we want to really honor the calling God's put on our life that we take the time to be intentional with it. So I want to walk you through some steps that will help you raise ready kids. Kids that are ready in all areas of their lives, whether it's their career, whether it's their finances or their health, the home, whatever area. So I have some notes here and I'm going to look down so I don't miss them. But I want to talk about not only the importance, but how do you walk that out? When you think about all the knowledge, all the skills, everything you want them to have, everything you think a successful adult needs, how are they going to learn that? How are you going to walk that out? Now, I want to start with the disclaimer. I did not do this perfectly, and that's why I'm sharing it with you, because I want you to get it right. And I have 1 left, and I'm working hard on this, and I'm walking alongside this with you as well. And I have a disclaimer because when my older kids were little, we lived in an RV, and it was really hard to teach them how to cook in an RV. So there's my disclaimer right out of the gate. If you think I have it all together, I don't. I've missed some of this too. But I think it's so important that we have this dialogue, that we talk about it, that we encourage and equip each other to do this well and right. And I actually put together a workbook for you that you can just easily print it off and walk this through yourself. And you can design it for exactly what your kids need and what God's called you to do with your kids. So let's just talk about some of the big concepts that we really want to instill in our kids. Now, here's the truth. Naturally, we moms, if we're smart and intelligent and loving and kind, they're going to pick up some of these attributes. They're going to learn this along the way without even trying to do a lot of energy into it or focus into it. They're going to get it. But if you really want to launch your kids successfully, you want them to thrive, you want them to run full speed ahead with their God-given calling, you need to start being intentional today. You need to start instilling these things into them right now. So what things do we need to do? Let's just start at the top. So we're going to first of all start with the first one because it happens when they're little. And no matter where you are, if you have itty bitty kids or if you have older kids, it doesn't matter. You're going to start this wherever you are today. And of course, it's the easier it is when they're younger, but you don't let that stop you. It doesn't matter where you are. I have a 15-year-old and I'm still working on some of this stuff. So we're going to talk about the first one, and it's about their character. What character traits? Now, naturally, we do this with our itty bitty kids. We teach them to be kind. We teach them to share. We teach them, just courtesy. We teach them all that. And so that is so important. But what you want to do is you want to write down, what character traits do I want them to know? I want them to be respectful. Then that's teaching respect. That's teaching them they don't talk back to you. That's teaching them obedience the first time. It's about a character. It's about they're not whiny. And so if you want a confident kid and you don't want a whiny kid, and sometimes it's easier to look at the negative and then twist it to the positive. If you want your child to be on time for things, so you're about diligence. So you want to teach them diligence, and you start training them now, and you have to do it too, where you're 15 minutes early. I won't even say what it is, but I have 1 daughter. If I say, we need to be there at 1 o'clock, she will be pulling in at 1 o'clock instead of quarter till. Now that's on me. I should have trained her better, and knowing her time, the way she sees time, that's on me. And so I want you to eliminate some of the things that I have maybe steered wrong. And yes, they're still trainable. Yes, they can figure it out as an adult. But you want to make it as easy as possible for your kids to be successful as possible. So the first one I want to hit is just kind of that character trait. That's what you're teaching them when they're younger. They're respectful. Please, thank you, all those kinds of things. So the second one is spiritual. What do you spiritually want them to get to? Now, I created a whole book and it talks about 7 strategies to raising godly kids. And the last strategy is all about spiritual formation, teaching them, guiding them in the spiritual realm. And you can check that out. It's called Intentional Mom Unshakable Faith, and that will help you. But I want to just walk through what are some of the spiritual things you want them to know? You want them to know about giving or maybe tithing or fasting or going to church, being a part of a community of believers, having someone help them strive to do better, reading good books, reading their Bible daily, to have a habit that they read their Bible daily. They read good books that build them up and guide and direct them. So those are some of the components that you want to put into writing it out. Mine are going to be different than yours. So you want to write out what values, what's important to you spiritually for your kids. When they walk out of the house, if you were, forbid you would die, but what would you want them to do and how would you want them to know it or do it? So maybe there's scriptures you want them to memorize. You want God's word hidden in their heart. That is so much easier when they're younger. My kids were a part of a Bible quiz program. It was so amazing, but they would memorize whole books of the Bible. It was mind boggling. I could barely struggle to memorize a few scriptures and they were memorizing books of the Bible. But what kind of things? You want them to be involved in a local church. You wanted them to be involved serving others. You want them to go on mission trip and experience the lost, the broken, a third world that doesn't have the luxuries that we do. So you're going to write down all the spiritual things that you want them to know. The next one is relational. How do you want them to handle relationships? So whether it's how to set healthy boundaries or etiquette, like if they go to someone's house, you say thank you, you can bring a gift. What are some of the components that you want them to know? They're going to attract good friends if they're a good friend. Some of this area of relationally, it's so important to teach them how to forgive and how to ask for forgiveness. It's so good when they have siblings that they walk that through and they learn to forgive each other and that you model it for them. I'm looking at my notes because I don't want to miss anything. How to navigate friendships, hospitality. What do you do if you have a guest at your house? How do you treat them? What do you put out? How can you do that? So those are all those components that you want to kind of highlight. And these are the things that you want to teach your child. Now, you're not going to teach it in one moment or one year. It's going to be stretched over, but you want to make sure that you hit some of these. So the next one is your home. So we want to launch kids who, if they get out in their own home, they can survive. They know how to pay their own bills. They know how to cook their own meals. They know how to clean. They know how to do all of those things, whether it's changing a tire in their car, all the things that kind of go with that home life kind of encompasses all that. You want them to know how to meal plan and how to wash their own clothes, how to maintain the household or a car. And you want them to walk through it with you. You want to show them, how do you pay your bills? Do you pay them online? How do you know who to call? It's so funny because until your kids launch, you don't really think about these things. When my kids got their own apartment or their own space and they had to pay their own bills, you want your kids to feel successful. And the more you prepare them earlier on, the better they'll be able to launch and be more successful. So that's kind of the home front. That's the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, the minor repairs in the house, all of that upkeep of the house and buying insurance if they're going to own their own home. I mean, all those kind of parts. So you want to walk them through that and teach them that, guide and direct them. The next one is career. So this is helping them write a resume, helping them build a resume. So getting them to have those odd jobs or those jobs when they're younger. You want them to know time management so they can show up and be hard workers. So in a career, that's where work ethic, you're going to see this overlap in other ones, but you want them to have a really strong work ethic. So if you teach them to do a job in your household, you need to make sure that it is a professionally, a well done job to their best ability and not sloppy. The next one, which is one of my favorites, is financial. Because I really was a budgeter, once I figured out a budget, everything changed for me. And so, do you want to teach them how to write a budget, how to create a budget? How do they manage money within their care? What good books could you have them read? All of my kids are required to read Smart Money, Smart Kids, Smart Kids, Smart Money. It's a Ramsey book, but they are all required in high school to read that book. And it just teaches them delayed gratification and investing. What does paying taxes? This is a hysterical story. My daughter had a little Pinterest account, and suddenly Pinterest, she signed up for it. We didn't really know anything about it. And all of a sudden, she gets like $800 in her account. And we're like, where did that come from? We found out it was from her Pinterest account, blah, blah, blah. But she had to pay taxes on that. And she's like, what? And it just shocked her and she was mad and she was really upset. But we walked her through, how do you pay your taxes and why do you have to pay taxes? And we also did that when they were little. So I'd give them an allowance. And in that allowance, they got to keep some of the money, they had to tithe some of their money, and they had to tax some of their money. Everybody had a little bit different because of the different ages. And then with that tax money, we would go out and we would buy ice cream, and that went towards everybody ice cream. So my older daughter put more money in My younger child didn't, but we all got the same ice cream. They didn't get a bigger scoop and a smaller scoop. So it's teaching them kind of that concepts in life financially, tithing, avoiding debt, the importance of what does that look like, and compound interest, as my husband's famous buzzword. But you want to teach them all the things financially. Just recently, we went to the bank and I got a checking account for my son and a debit card so he could take out his own money. And he's 15 because he's got his own business going on. But financially, you just want to prep your child. The next one is health. How to take care of your health, how to eat healthy, how to work out. It has to be modeled. Moms, we can't just tell them to be healthy. We need to model it. Both my husband and I are pretty good at modeling that. We go for walks. Now, eating healthy, I like sweets, I like ice cream, but for the most part, we make homemade meals. We don't eat a lot of processed food and junk food. We try to be really healthy in that sense. Are we perfect? No. Could we do it a lot better? Yes. But it's something that we want to teach our kids, eating healthy, having a balanced lifestyle, working out, being active, all the things that come with that. Doctors, dentists, brushing your teeth every day, twice a day. See what I mean? When you're starting when they're little and you're going to do it all the way up. Then the last one is just life skills. And this is my kind of a buzzword passion, intentional. And being intentional means you set goals. My kids know if you're a Peterson, you set goals. My son the other day, he's leading a missions trip out in Argentina with some youth, and he called me and he's like, Mom, do you realize some people don't set goals? Like, that was shocking to him. He just assumed that was common sense. That was common knowledge. Every family did that. And he was just from a family that we set goals from the beginning. We laid it out. You want to have them learn what do they want and how do you get to that? And you want to teach them time management skills. You want to also with life skills is teaching your kids to be lifelong learners, growing. If they're in a career, how do I get better at this? Always helping them, guide them towards growth and doing their best and being in their best and showing up as their best. So those are some of the areas. Now, you don't have to just stop at those. Those are just some themes that you want to pour into your child. And the easiest way is you're going to get this workbook and you just fill it and making it personal. When you think of all the things, let me think about the household. Okay, I want them to cook. I want them to know how to do their laundry. I want them to clean. I want them to know how to shopping. How do you figure out your budget? Write it all out. And then go through each of these concepts and figure out what is pertinent to your family. What makes sense for your family? And what do you want them to walk away with? So at the end of the day, your kids are going to leave the house. Like it or not, I have had 5 that have left the house, and I want them to be ready. It's not that I just want them ready. I want them to be successful, and I want them to be confident. And yes, I have calls, Mom, how do I do this? Or Mom, how did you make this? Or I love those calls, and I love getting to walk through it with them. But I also like the fact that they're confident and they're launch ready. They're calling as a mom. It's not just to take care of the daily mundane, the daily dishes, the daily laundry. Sometimes we just get stuck in today that we forget there's a future. There is something ahead for our kids. It's important to us. We want to make sure that we're preparing them so they can show up as their best version of who God created them to be and that they're ready and equipped. And that's the exciting part of mothering. We're not just in this moment, but we're thinking forward in the next moment. What does God have ahead of them? And as you see them develop and grow and expand their mentalities and their creativity, and you get to help guide them. And the truth is, at the end of the day, I shared at the beginning how I sat with 2 friends and they said my kids weren't launch ready. What they didn't know, I was thinking long term. When they got on their own, did they have all these different parts that would help them? Do they know how to change a tire, change oil? Do they know when they have to do that? What kind of things? And no, we didn't do it all right. And that's why I'm sharing this. That's a blessing of having more than one child, 6. You kind of maybe get it better by the end, hopefully. And my daughter will say I get a little looser too. But you can learn and you grow and you get better at it. And that's where I am today. I'm hopefully better than I was when I had my first child launching. I've learned things that were important and what were valuable and what really mattered. And even if you miss it, even if you miss, it's okay. You still get to teach them and you're going to get that mom, how do I calls and you're going to love that. But when you can start early, when you know better, do better. And that's the bottom line. I want you to grab this free resource because it will help you mentally mark up all the things that you want to have happen. Now, whether you write them all out or just have it as a launching pad, it'll help you be successful as you raise ready kids. Okay. I hope you feel encouraged. I hope you feel excited. And you have to know this doesn't happen overnight. This isn't just, okay, tomorrow I'm going to get it done. This is a lifetime of theirs. They got 18 years in your home, and maybe you're like, "Oh, crap, Nancy." Or they're 12 and they're 14 and they're 15. It doesn't matter. You can still teach them all these concepts. It doesn't take as long as you think, but it does take intentionality and it does take planning and it does take a little bit of preparation to get it done. And you got to know what you want to do too. So write it out. Just put the highlights, and you can either physically check them off if you're a checkoff person like me. Be ready to have kids that thrive beyond your doors. All right, that's it for this. As always, stay intentional, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.